Well, if they're not trained properly, those clients might leave you a bad review. They may not refer you to other people they know, or it's costing you more money to manage them than you're making.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hare. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast.
As companies grow, the spreadsheets multiply, communication breaks down, and suddenly the founder becomes the person holding everything together. Today's guest believes the answer isn't simply hiring more people or working longer hours. It's building smarter systems that eliminate friction before it becomes chaos. Alane is a serial entrepreneur, workflow automation expert, and co-CEO of Biggest Goal, where she helps agencies and service-based businesses use AI, automation, and operational systems to grow more efficiently without sacrificing quality or burning out their teams. Let's get in. Alane, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we kind of jump into it, I wanted to know how you got here today. So what caused you to be so interested in kind of business growth, automation, project management?
Well, I from a young age, just what I wanted to be when I grew up was a CEO, wear cute outfits. So I always knew that I was going to be running a company from about 11 years old. And this is actually my second company to run. I built up a social media agency before this with two software platforms, built that up to 600 clients, 125 employees, and I sold that company in 2018. And going through that process, all the PE firms and strategic partners that were looking at purchasing us just kept saying what a well oiled machine we were. And they never saw companies that organized when they sold. So, my business partner and I, when we sold in retirement, we weren't doing very well mentally. We needed some purpose and needed something to do. And we thought, well, if we were such a unicorn, maybe we can help other companies build the operations that we did. And so that's how this company got started, Biggest Goal.
I love that. Let's talk about some of those kind of unicorn characteristics, I'd say. One of the things I saw that you talked about before is leaders over functioning inside the business. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, leaders, especially when you're going from you as the builder and the creator of the company to building a team, doing stuff, we have a hard time letting go. And we want to get in there and still be a part of everything when when we're doing that, we're not allowing our company to grow. We're not allowing the people that we hire to do their jobs. We're really just micromanaging too much. And so that's what I see a lot of times going from 0 to 30 teammates or employees is like that owner or that leader just cannot get themselves out of that day-to-day role that they're so used to being in.
So the obvious objection to that though, right, is well, they don't do things the way they need to do, or if I step away, the wheels come off. So
Mhm.
what kind of tools do you advocate that a founder or a leader should put into the business or themselves personally to kind of step out of that overfunction world?
Yeah, the very first thing, and I even say this if you're uh, a one person company, is getting a project management system in place, like something like a Monday.com or Asana, ClickUp, or even like a Trello, just something to start putting together. What is your process? What from going from new client to on board, from new client coming on board to them being a functioning client. What are those steps? Because somebody else can follow the steps. And I think one of my aha moments was as a founder was that I couldn't let go at one point. And especially we had these large multi-million dollar contracts, which even though we were a larger team, still felt very personal to me because they were multi-million dollar contracts. We lose one, makes a big impact on the company.
Yeah.
And my business partner was so frustrated with me because I couldn't let go of those. And he came into my office furious at me one day and was just like, "You are not the only person on the planet that can do what you do." hire who you need. We have the resources. If you need multiple people, hire multiple people. But there is somebody else in the world, because you can hire anywhere, that can absolutely do what you do. And I was so angry, but he was so right. Like, we are not the only person that can do what we do. And sure, maybe we need multiple people that are more skilled at just one part of what we do. But I think through that all the time is, hey, not only can somebody do what I can do, but there is somebody that likes that part of the job better than I do. I really like being in the strategic world, not in the operational world.
And I think that's a huge component. So, one of the things you teased kind of at the beginning of your last answer was project management. And
Mm-mm.
I think that's so important. And I think sometimes there's what's the word I want to use? Some stigma around project management, right? People think, oh, that's just how you stay organized, but it's much more than that to you. So, talk to me about kind of your approach to project management and what some of these
Mhm.
companies, contractors, public adjusters, even law firms should be thinking about in terms of project management. Because I think we think of it as claim management or case
Mhm.
management, right? We have a
Mhm.
system that tells us what we need to do with these particular cases or claims and keeps it all
Yeah.
there. But that's not project management as it relates to a company.
Right, and we work with a ton of law firms, and typically that's where they've started dialing it in, is some type of case management. Immigration attorneys, they've got each piece of that paperwork that needs to get filed and filled out and everything. And so I typically will see it and in any company where they're thinking about it from a client type of management piece. But that is such a small piece of what your company does. What about your hiring process? What about billing? I can't tell you how many companies don't bill right away. They don't have a process for at what point do you bill and where are you tracking the hours, if it's a billable time or what. So I always talk about project management is everything you do in your company. Everything from marketing. And one of our law firms where they really started to see this, they've got every marketing team member in there, from the blog posts to the social media content that's going out is in their project management system. And so that's kind of what you have to dial back if you're wanting to grow past just maybe you and a paralegal and an assistant. What are the processes? What are your hiring processes? What is your bookkeeping process? Everything you do in your company is a process, whether you have it written down or not. And so I always say start with just a checklist. You can start with a task in your project management system with subtasks under that and just start putting those pieces together. And that is a great starting place because you've got other things happening other than just your client work.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important because one of the things that does happen, and I hate this, and I see this across so many businesses, is we train by like oral tradition, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's not that everything has to be written, right? But everything should be written down, even if not
Mhm.
all training is written, right?
Yes.
And I use it like the if I got hit by a bus example, right? Who would take over this firm? And 4 years ago, the answer would have been, I don't know. They'd have to figure it out, right? But today, as far as what I do day in and day out, it is written down and it's taken in. And even now with AI, we won't get it too much into that, but even with AI, I have an AI bot that could literally sit down with someone and be like, okay, Galen is unavailable for the next however long. What does he do that I need to start doing now? And
Mhm.
I think you're just missing such an opportunity, you know?
The process can get so much faster when you have it written, because that's what people really care about. They care about the outcome. How you get there, as long as everything is correct, they are ecstatic when the process moves faster. So if your team members are having to go back to you and ask questions all day to get the work done, that timeline's getting pushed out. So you're like your AI bot example, man, if that can do intake for you and it gets to the same outcome and it gets it done in 5 minutes versus 4 days, that is a happy customer that's interacting.
Absolutely. Um, but let's talk about how we organize this to begin with. So obviously one option is to go with use someone like you. However, and just from a fundamental approach. So you walk into your business, you own
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
and after listening to this podcast or whatever epiphany you had that you need to organize your systems and really engage in a project management. But that's overwhelming.
It
And
is.
every single system you have is urgent. So how do you figure out how to prioritize and where to
Yeah.
start when you're onboarding a project management system or just generally even your checklist example? How do I know where to pick that up?
I'm really wondering if you had these pain points at one point, Galen, and you're turning
Yeah,
these
you picking that
questions.
up?
Well, just because you're asking all the right questions, I'm like, I think you've experienced this at some point in your past, and you're able to look back at that. But everything does feel urgent, and I always kind of laugh, but it's not really funny. But people do get motivated, like whether they listen to this podcast or something triggers them that says, "Today we are doing this, and this is going to be a focus." Oh my gosh, especially New Year's. That is like always a resolution for companies. We always see an uptick in clients around going into January, but the truth is you can't do everything at once, just like with anything. You have to dial it back. And the best way that I can say to do it is what are you being asked about right now? What is on your plate? Your Slack messages? Is it, hey, what's the next step in the process? Just take it one step at a time based on be reactionary. And then once you get that stuff, then you're gonna be able to be more strategic about, okay, we have these clients coming on board, so let me go ahead and get the process documented for this part of it. But in the beginning, just do it as a reaction instead of just slacking back or using Teams or WhatsApp and writing back a specific answer. Record a Loom video, have AI put it into a step by step, save that into Google Docs as a knowledge based document. You can start with the questions that you're getting asked now and turn that into the next step of the process to document.
And I think you hit on something that, while it wasn't necessarily my intention to talk too terribly much about technology because I'm like AI obsessed, one of the things you mentioned was even Loom, right?
Mhm,
And we're in a world technologically where if you were just doing the same thing over and over, or someone else is, but it's not written down,
mhm.
you can quite literally record your screen and you can even talk through it out loud like you were training someone, go figure,
Yeah.
and then have that converted into actual actionable checklists or whatever system you prefer to use. Is that kind of one of your approaches with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not a paid sponsor of Loom, but I sure do promote them quite a bit because the technology I just think about, man, 15 years ago, if I woulda had that when I was building my social media agency, that would have saved us so much time in documenting because you can answer the question by recording a Loom, and then that transcript is there that you can just say to AI, "Hey, record or turn this transcript into a step-by-step guide." Now you have a walkthrough and that guide that pairs together and you send that off and now you have it documented. Like the technology just makes it so much easier than what I remember having to do in the past with screenshots and annotations on the screenshot to show where to click next and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And for any of you sitting at home, as a quick aside, like if you're not sure what Loom is, or you're worried, or you don't want to buy another tool, you probably have the tools already, right? So like,
Mhm.
when we started doing this, we were on Slack, and if someone asked me a question, I'd be like, "Okay, Elaine, let's just jump on Slack real quick. I'll share my screen with you." And then I
Mhm.
realized, "Oh man, I'm doing this all the time." So then I started hitting record,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is years ago. And then someone would ask me a question that someone else had already asked me, and I'd be like, "Let me send you this recording of me explaining this to someone else, and then
Yeah.
reach out if you have questions." And that was the building blocks that we started to build our project
Mhm.
management tools on,
It's
was
perfect.
literally with just tons and tons of recordings.
Yeah. And where this kind of goes to is like you're saying is the project management tool is the what to do. These are all the checklist items that need to get done. And the documentation like we're talking about is how to do that step. So all of these recordings, the step-by-step guides can live in your project management tool along with that task. So you have somebody working on it and they don't know what to do for that new task. Great. It's already all right there in the description. They can click and watch the video or they can see the description. And it just makes that whole thing, people can just get done with their day. And something that I saw happen, and maybe you saw this too, is our employee satisfaction went up as we started putting these processes in because people just want to be done with work. They want to do a good job and they want to leave work and they want to go do their real life. Well, when they could just go to work and get their stuff done, they were happier. And then they didn't have to work an extra hour later to get the same work done because they already knew what the process was.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a great way to lose really good new employees too, is that they just
Mhm.
feel lost and drowning. And the more
Mhm.
organized they onboard, we've noticed, at least at our firm, and we might be unique, but I think it's universal. We notice that they stay longer,
Mhm.
they're happier, and even when they do leave, they leave with less chaos because
Mhm.
they understand the process of onboarding and offboarding, and it's
Right.
all documented, and they work with us on that. We never get anyone just, like, walk in and leave. They all come in,
Mhm.
they give notice, and they know what the process is. Because
Right.
how many times do you have employees leave with any of your clients, and they put in, let's say, 2 weeks notice, and the first week and a half is internal strife trying to figure out what to do to replace this person instead of
Yeah.
just a process that HR can follow to get the ad up, that, internally your ops people can follow to figure out where this people's projects were and what they need to
Mhm.
do and who's gonna take it all, and we just follow checklists now, and it feels so much less hectic.
Yeah. I think like one of the things that, and you're speaking to it as well, and you mentioned it, is you cannot operate on manual things. You can't operate off of post-its and email. That it does take some technology. Whenever an employee leaves, most of the time I can say they can leave tomorrow and the next person can pick up exactly where they left off. Like, I don't even need the 2 weeks outside of the time to just hire somebody to replace them, but I don't need them to stay on to get knowledge transfers out of them. But it's because I have software, I have a CRM that has a log of everything. I've got my project management with the status of where the client was and what projects we're working on. Like, we're utilizing technology so that people are there for the human side of things and for knowledge, but not on what the process is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I say if you're doing it right, every time someone comes in to quit, when that does happen, it should be 2 weeks paid vacation for them, and what I mean by that is
Mhm.
we have enough of a system set up because 'cause I'm always gonna reward giving notice because I want everyone to give notice, right? So I'm never just
Yeah.
gonna be like, "Fine, you're fired," right?
Right.
But more often than not, a day or so into their notice period, we're like, "Hey, Elaine, you're good. You can go.
Yeah.
We'll pay you out the 2 weeks. We got
Yeah.
everything we need. Thank you."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Just take it as like a 2-week paid vacation. Good luck at your next job. We hope you do great."
That is the best feeling to have too. Instead of scrambling and stressed and putting stress on the team, it's like you just like could breathe, and it's one less thing to have to worry about in the day to know, hey, I can replace them and it's going to be okay.
Exactly. So as we kind of start to approach the end of our time together, one area I did want to hit, and they're interrelated, but one of the things you do particularly well and you advocate that all businesses should be doing is identifying revenue leaks. So let's talk about what that process looks like.
Oh gosh. So with revenue leaks, there's so many pieces. Even just knowing what your expenses are, obviously that's a revenue leak. But people are your most expensive resource that is going out the door. And I find that people think that more people are going to solve the problem versus having the tools and the processes in place, paying a little bit extra for those software and not having to need an extra person, another $70,000 salary. An extra $70,000 salary where you could have some software in place that costs you maybe $1,200 a year, that is a huge gain and less knowledge holding for the person. Every time you introduce a new person into the company, that's a new, potential roadblock or um, knowledge transfer that you have to make, but where software could eliminate that. And that revenue leak happens every single time you hire a new person on your team, whether it's you're not training them properly, like you mentioned, having them even being able to come in and have training available, you see that they stay on longer. Absolutely. And that's, you're seeing it from a personal experience. And there's so many studies out there too that says if you even just have training for them their first 2 weeks, they're more likely to stay an additional year. You have training for them for their first 3 months, you're more likely to have them 3 to 5 years because they can just jump in and start tackling things, their self-confidence goes up, and so those revenue leaks can happen from a personnel standpoint, but also, well, if they're not trained properly, those clients might leave you a bad review. They may not refer you to other people they know, or it's costing you more money to manage them than you're making.
Yeah. And that's a huge component there, right? And I think people don't think of that as a revenue leak, as like people leaving or people just doing a bad job, but it very much is. That one negative review can cost you untold numbers of
Mhm,
clients. And I
mhm.
agree with you. I think people are not usually the answer, more people. The right people are always the answer,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
but
mhm.
more people is not usually the answer. Sometimes it's unavoidable.
Right,
We
right.
brought on a new referral source. We're signing 20 additional clients a day. That's a lot. The answer was, and they want personal touch, not some automated intake,
Mhm.
right? So the answer was absolutely to staff up our intake, right? But generally
Yeah,
speaking, I think our approach is there a software that'll make this person's life easier? Is there some AI tool that will take something off of this person's plate so they have more time? And only if the answer to both of those is no, do we say, okay, do we need to bring someone in to either help this person or take something off of this person's plate?
yeah.
Is that
I
kind of what
find
your
that
approach or?
yeah, definitely, and I always think about what are the touch points that the customer doesn't see? Because we want to have time to be more human. We want the time so they feel like they're getting a white glove service. But a lot of times what we're doing for the client doesn't see. So it's always on the operation side that things that can be more efficient, that things can get done. And there's a big difference between growth and scale. You can grow a company by growing revenue 1% because you had to hire 10 people to manage this. Well, 1% to me, I don't want to do that much more work to only bring in 1% more revenue. That was more headaches I just brought in. But scaling, can I bring on 20 clients and not need to hire somebody? Then that's a scalable process. Can I bring on, 50 new clients and just need to bring on one more person? What does the scale look like? That is a differentiating factor is of course you're going to have to hire people. I didn't get to a $17 million company with 125 employees because I avoided hiring people. It's that I could scale the company with my processes and hire the right person to come in when I needed a person there. So that's the big mindset shift is I don't want to just grow because that is such a small gain. I wanna look at how can I scale?
Amen. I couldn't have said it better. I think I know your answer, but I have one last question because I know you got to run. So before you go, what does it mean to you to level up?
Well, I've been thinking about, how there's so many ways, and I will say the biggest thing that helped me level up is to get out of my own way and to really start talking to other entrepreneurs and listening to things that I wouldn't listen to. So it was just a big thing of like knowledge. Where can I grow that I don't want to be stuck? Because if I was still trying to run my company the way I was 15 years ago, I would be stuck. So knowledge is always helping me level up. Thinking about new perspectives, bringing in other outside perspectives, because I can be very stuck in my ways and think I'm always right. And I've had to really unwind that. And leveling up for me has meant bringing in those experts and trusting them outside of me being the only person in the room thinking that they're right.
I couldn't agree more, although you do seem to be right quite a bit. So thank you so much, Elaine,
I
for
love
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
It's been amazing. Thanks for coming on. I'd like to thank Elaine Boyd for joining us on the show. As you can see, she knows exactly what she's doing. You can't grow a business like she did if you don't. And the answer at the end of the day to so many problems that our businesses have is really, really simple. Project management. Get organized. Know what you're doing. Set your employees and your business up for success, and ultimately, you'll be much happier for it.
Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And make sure you like and subscribe to keep up to date on our latest podcasts.